I had barely stepped out of the taxi when I saw them. My father and older brother, standing on the porch, smirking as if they'd been waiting all day to hit me with a blow I didn't see coming. My sea bag was still over my shoulder, my boots still dusty from Okinawa, and I hadn't even taken 3 steps toward the house before my father said it. "You're homeless now." No greeting, no welcome home. Just a line that hit harder than any blast I'd felt downrange. I froze. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My brother snorted into his beer. "We sold your house, sis. Try to keep up." They laughed at me, their daughter, returning from an overseas rotation to find everything gone. My father lazily pointed at the door. "Your brother needed help. Family sacrifices. You weren't here. You didn't need the place." And then the line that revealed their true view of me. "You Marines bounce around anyway. What difference does a house make?" I should have exploded, cursed, fallen apart, but instead I smiled, a slow, steady smile that made them frown. "What's so funny?" my father snapped. "The house you sold was actually—" I paused. Before finishing, I need to explain how this began. None of it was accidental. They didn't stumble into betrayal. They planned it, just not as well as they thought. 3 months earlier, I was stationed in Okinawa, halfway through a 6-month rotation. I looked forward to it. Shore duty isn't glamorous, but it's predictable. Predictable is rare for Marines. I spent off hours calling home to check on the house I'd owned 8 years, bought after my second deployment, renovated myself room by room. It was my anchor, my stability, my future. But calls home felt off. My father sounded irritated. My brother, Chad, ever the project, had moved back in after losing another job. Whenever I asked what he was doing to get back on his feet, Dad defended him. "He just needs time. Don't be so judgmental, Maria." Background noise, unfamiliar voices, a call ending abruptly with, "Did she send the money yet?" I tried not to overthink it. I'd been gone most of my adult life, training, deploying, bouncing from base to base. Maybe I didn't understand home. Maybe I didn't want to. But 2 weeks before returning, a text from my father gave warning. "Call us before you come home." No punctuation, no explanation. That familiar Marine gut twist told me something was wrong. Duty hours kept me from calling immediately. By the time I could, it went to voicemail. I told myself it wasn't important. My flight was booked. I'd be home soon. Then I was in the driveway, facing the people who were supposed to be family, realizing they'd sold the roof over my head. I didn't know yet that it was to cover Chad's gambling debt. But guilt and shamelessness were already written on their faces. My brother lifted his beer like he'd won something. "Don't look so shocked, sis. You were gone. Dad had power of attorney. Easy process. You'll get over it." My jaw tightened, but the smile stayed, growing. "Is that what he told you?" I asked softly. My father's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" I stayed silent. What they didn't know, and wouldn't for another minute, was that the house wasn't what they thought legally, financially, or structurally. They had no idea what they'd sold. I wasn't ready to reveal it. Sometimes revenge needs to simmer. I set my bag down, brushed off dust, and walked toward the porch like nothing could touch me. My father stepped aside, annoyed. My brother scoffed. "Look at her acting all calm." They thought I was stunned. I was calm because I was 10 steps ahead. Marines don't hope for the best. We prepare for the worst. This was nothing compared to what I'd survived before. I didn't go inside immediately. I just stood there as they waited for me to break. Nothing came. The silence alone made my father shift and my brother nervously tap his beer on the railing. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "Well, aren't you going to say something?" I studied him. The man who woke up early to make me breakfast, who cried at my boot camp graduation, who hugged me so tight before deployment, I almost couldn't breathe. When did he stop being that man? When did I stop being his daughter and become a bank account instead? "When did you sell it?" I asked, voice steady. 3 weeks ago, he said. "It was the right thing. Your brother needed help." "Needs. Always Chad's." "And you didn't think to call me?" I asked. "You were overseas busy. Marines always too busy to pick up a phone." "Interesting," I said. I'd called every week. Chad rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go." "Did you know? Did you watch him sign away my home?" He shrugged. "Dad said it was fine." Almost laughable, how unself-aware a man could be. I didn't argue. I walked across the yard, letting cold Washington air clear my head. Outside, the house looked unchanged. White siding, hedges, flagpole, but it didn't feel the same. Something deeper than a deed was broken. Dad called out, "We put the money to good use. Chad's debt is handled. He's safe now." Debt. The word sat heavy in my stomach. Chad didn't pay debts. He created them, and Dad enabled him every step. I walked back to the porch stairs. "You two want to tell me the truth," I said. "Or should I find it myself?" My father's jaw tightened. Chad crushed his beer can. "What truth? You're overreacting," he said. "Really?" I asked. "Because when I left, the house was paid off. No debt, no liens, nothing pending. To sell it quickly, you'd have needed cash buyers. That points to desperation. Whose desperation?" Chad's eyes flickered for a moment, and I caught it. "Your brother," I said softly. "So which one was it? Gambling? Drugs? Loan shark?" My father exploded. "Stop interrogating him like he's a criminal." "I'm interrogating because my house is gone," I said calmly. "You were gone," he shot back. "Always gone. Always Marine Corps this, Marine Corps that. You think you're better than everyone. You think you don't need this family." "I've been serving this country for 13 years," I said. "Every assignment, I came home to this house. My house. The one thing I built. The one thing that was mine." He waved a hand dismissively. "You'll buy another one. You make good money? Better than him." He pointed at Chad as if he were a helpless child, not a 39-year-old man repeatedly bailed out by family. Something inside me shifted. I saw them clearly, like a lens had focused. Dad wasn't helping Chad out of kindness. He needed someone to need him. Chad wasn't apologizing because he never had to. Dad always took the fall, and now they'd taken from me, assuming I was strong enough to survive betrayal. That's the paradox of being strong. People think the knife doesn't hurt when they twist it. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped out, blonde hair, sweatpants, holding a mug reading, "Mama needs coffee." Not my father's girlfriend, not a neighbor, someone else entirely. "Who are you?" I asked. She smiled lightly. "I'm Emily, the new owner." My father winced. Chad shifted. My world tilted. The house wasn't just sold, it was finalized, closed. And yet, I smiled. "Congratulations," I said. "Did they tell you everything?" "Everything," she replied. I looked at my father and brother. Their faces had paled just enough to show they were in dangerous territory, too. I turned to Emily. "Did they tell you that the house you bought—" I paused, letting the tension grow, letting my father fidget, and Chad grip the railing, "isn't actually in their name?" Emily looked confused. My father's voice cracked. "Maria, don't." But I wasn't done, not even close. Emily blinked, unsure whether to smile or retreat. She seemed like someone who avoided conflict her whole life, gentle, polite, apologetic by nature. And now, here she was, caught in a mess she didn't know existed. She gripped her mug tighter. "What do you mean it's not in their name?" she asked. "The paperwork may look official," I said evenly, "but it only tells one side of the story." I looked at my father and let silence hang, letting him feel the weight of his actions. His face flushed, a mix of shame and anger. Chad muttered under his breath, his smirk gone. They both knew I wasn't bluffing. They hadn't accounted for this when they treated my power of attorney like a free pass. "I don't understand," Emily whispered. "My father says a lot of things," I replied. "Let me ask you something. Who handled the sale?" She glanced at him, then back at me. "A man named Benson. He said he was helping your family with the transfer." I closed my eyes for a second. Benson, an old acquaintance of my father's. Someone always connected, always involved in deals. A man who operated in gray areas of money and property. The kind who turns desperation into profit. "Did you sign anything with an attorney present?" I asked. She shook her head. "He said it wasn't necessary. The family wanted it quick." The word quick cracked slightly, heavy with implication. That's how these things happen. Quick sales, quick transfers, quick lies, quick destruction. Behind me, my father stepped forward. "Maria, enough. You're upsetting her." I turned slowly. "Upsetting her? You sold her a house you had no right to sell. You stole from me and dragged her into it." My voice remained calm, but something sharp ran beneath it. Years in the Marine Corps had taught me that shouting loses power. Silence, restraint, precision, those were far more effective. My father rubbed his forehead. "You weren't here. You didn't need the house. We did the best we could." "The best you could," I echoed. "Or the fastest way to clean up another one of Chad's disasters?" Chad stiffened. "It wasn't a disaster. A misunderstanding," he muttered. "A misunderstanding that cost thousands," I said. or tens of thousands? Let me guess. Sports betting? Poker? Or have you graduated to loan sharks? He looked away, jaw tight. That was enough of an answer. I turned back to Emily. How long have you been here? A week, she said softly. We just moved in. And did you wonder why the sale went so fast? She hesitated. Your father said you were living overseas and wanted the money for something else. He said you agreed. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a scam. Orchestrated while I was halfway across the world in uniform, serving with integrity. Emily, I said gently, I'm sorry you were dragged into this, but the truth is, they didn't have the legal right to sell this house. Not fully. I pulled a folded document from my pocket, something I'd carried since deployment. Her eyes scanned it. This house was purchased using a VA home loan, I explained. Certain protections and rules apply. Selling it without my presence, my consent, or proper legal procedure. I glanced at my father. That's federal, not family business. Emily's eyes widened. My father's face went pale. Chad's bravado evaporated. Power of attorney gives temporary rights for bills, repairs, emergencies. It does not allow selling federally backed property without proper authorizations, none of which were completed. Emily pressed her hand against her chest, absorbing the truth. Are you saying the sale is invalid? I'm saying, I replied slowly, this isn't what you think it is. You'll need legal help to sort it out. My father stepped closer, his voice trembling with anger and fear. Maria, don't do this. We're family. That didn't stop you, I said. Family didn't matter when you needed quick cash. It was for your brother, he shouted. And what about me? I asked quietly. When did I stop being your child? When did I become expendable? For the first time that day, he had no answer. Emily spoke again. What do we do now? You, I said, get a lawyer. Tell them everything. And stop communicating with my father outside official channels. The deeper you get involved, the worse it will be for you. She nodded slowly, clutching her mug like it anchored her to reality. You're ruining everything, my father said, pointing a finger at me. No, I shook my head. You ruined everything the minute you treated my service as an opportunity instead of a sacrifice. Chad muttered something about marine attitude, but I barely heard him. I stepped off the porch, lifted my sea bag, boots crunching on gravel. The air was sharp and cold, but it cleared my mind. I walked toward the street. Where are you going? My father yelled. Home, I said. You don't have one, Chad shouted. I turned back, letting the porch light halo their silhouettes. That, I said calmly, is what you think. For the first time since landing, I felt calm. They had no idea how much trouble they'd created, no sense of the consequences coming. I didn't need to frighten them with details. Fear grows best when left unexplained. That night, I checked into a cheap roadside motel, the kind with a buzzing neon sign and a rattling air conditioner louder than the traffic outside. I set my sea bag on a chair, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my phone. My father's number flashed 3 times before I finally set the phone face down. I wasn't ready to speak, not when my chest still felt tight and my pulse jumped every time I replayed the porch scene. I thought of Emily's stunned face, Chad's guilt disguised as bravado, and my father's anger, excuses, and insistence that what he did was for the family. People love to use the word family when they need something from you, rarely when you need something from them. The motel smelled of old carpet and lemon cleaner. I showered to wash off the day, but even hot water couldn't lift the heaviness. I sat back, turned on the lamp, and pulled out the folder I'd carried since Okinawa. Paperwork, notes, screenshots, emails, everything I'd gathered during those final weeks overseas. Betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It starts with cracks, uneasy silences, half explanations. Then one day the dam breaks and you see every red flag was a warning. I remember the first time it truly hit. I was on a balcony outside the barracks in Okinawa, humidity thick, camies clinging to my skin, cicadas screaming in the trees. My phone buzzed, another notification. I almost ignored it, but the words froze me. Property ownership update. My instincts screamed to stop and read. The message was brief. No explanation, just a digital confirmation that an ownership change had been processed. Not completed, not verified. My name was still on the house, but another name appeared, incomplete, like a transfer had been started but never finished. I called my father. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. Texted him. No reply. Tried Chad. He didn't pick up. I stood on that balcony staring at the Pacific, warm breeze on my face, stomach cold with uncertainty. Not because I knew what was happening, but because I didn't. Uncertainty is worse than any truth. The next day during lunch, I asked a JAG officer for 5 minutes. He gave me 10. I told him what I'd seen. He didn't panic. He asked one question. Who has your power of attorney? My father, I said. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, not judgment, but recognition. He'd seen this too many times. Service members burned while deployed, families selling cars, cashing accounts, refinancing, emptying storage units, even signing divorce papers. Trust is good, he said, but oversight is better. Those words stayed with me. I asked what to do next. He guided me. Request full transaction logs from the county, explained which office to email, which forms to submit, how to phrase it so it wouldn't get buried. I sent the request that afternoon. A week later, the file came. I opened it on my bunk, expecting a clerical mistake. But seeing the signatures, dates, notations, and Benson's name, a cold settled in my bones. My father had signed the first authorization 2 days after texting me. He loved how peaceful the house felt lately. The second after a heart emoji, and the third, the one allowing the sale to proceed. On the same day, I called him from a field exercise telling him I missed home. Not once did he warn me. Chad's bank account appeared as a recipient for the wired money. I sat on my bunk, staring at the screen, lights flickering, fan humming, laughter of Marines in the hallway. Life moved around me. I felt frozen. Later that night, I called my father from the office phone, disguised. Cheerful at first. Hey, sweetheart, everything okay? I swallowed hard. Did you sell my house? The pause said it all. 5 seconds. 10, 15. A world collapsed. Then he said, before you get upset, I hung up. I couldn't trust myself to speak. Over the next few days, when he called back, I let it ring. I wasn't ready for excuses, reasoning, guilt, or justification. I wasn't ready for a man who hadn't respected me enough to tell the truth. What I was ready for, what began building inside me, was a plan. People imagine revenge as loud, explosive, dramatic. But true revenge is quiet. It waits. It breathes. It waits. It watches. It sharpens itself in the dark until it's needed. When my deployment ended, I made no announcement. I booked the earliest flight home and landed at SeaTac before sunrise. I didn't tell Dad, Chad, or anyone. I rented a car, went straight to the county recorder's office as soon as it opened, and requested every document in person. I spent 2 hours with a clerk who had seen enough messy family disputes to recognize trouble immediately. She didn't say much, but the sympathy in her eyes confirmed I wasn't wrong. Walking out with the full packet, the truth hit me. For the first time, my father and brother had legally cornered themselves. They just didn't know it yet. That night, in a cheap motel buzzing with neon, I laid out every page, every signature, every timestamp. I highlighted lines, circled dates, cross-referenced entries. The betrayal still hurt. God, it hurt. But understanding the scope of their mistake felt like air filling my lungs. They thought they'd beaten me, that I'd return helpless. They thought a Marine would crumble over a house, but they'd forgotten who raised me, that Mom taught me to fight quietly, that the Corps taught me to fight smart. And worst for them, they'd forgotten that consequences are patient. The next morning, I drove back to the neighborhood before sunrise. Houses were quiet, lawns wet with dew, soft gray fog lingering like the world hadn't fully woken. I parked a few houses down, letting the engine tick itself silent. It felt strange, sitting near a place that had once been my sanctuary, now claimed by strangers, because the people who should have protected me decided I was expendable. The porch light flicked on. Emily stepped out in a light jacket, looking as tired as I felt. Hair in a loose bun, arms wrapped around herself, she stared at the yard with a lost expression. I walked slowly toward her, not wanting to startle her. She looked up. Morning. Morning, she said softly. I didn't expect to see you here. I know, I said, but we have a lot to sort out. I stepped onto the grass, keeping a few feet between us, respecting the space she believed was hers. Did you talk to anyone last night? I asked. She nodded. My husband, he's flying back tonight. We'll get a lawyer first thing tomorrow. Then she hesitated. I didn't tell your father. Good, I said. Don't. She exhaled shakily and sank onto the porch step, mug trembling. I don't know how this happened. We've been saving for years. This was supposed to be our fresh start, our first real home. Her voice cracked. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt, not for causing it, but because my father's damage had spilled onto someone undeserving. I sat beside her. You didn't do anything wrong, Emily. You bought a house. You trusted the sellers. That's what anyone would do. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. When he told us he had authority, we believed him. He seemed so certain. My father always sounds certain, I said, even when he's dead wrong. She wiped her face. What do you think will happen now? That depends on how honest you are with your lawyer, I said, and how honest they are with the court. I pulled out 2 copies of the documents I'd assembled. Here, these are for your attorney. They outline everything I told you yesterday. Emily took them, fingers brushing mine briefly. This is going to get messy, isn't it? Yes, I said, but messy doesn't mean hopeless. Before she could respond, the front door swung open. My father stepped out, expression tight, rigid, impatient, the same one he used when scolding me as a teenager. Maria, what are you doing here? Talking, I said calmly. He pointed at me like I was trespassing. Not without my permission? I repeated. Interesting, considering none of this belongs to you. It doesn't belong to you either, he shouted. Emily flinched beside me. I stood and faced him. It never belonged to you. You acted like you could make decisions about my life because of a piece of paper and a signature. Power of attorney isn't ownership, Dad. It's responsibility. And you abused it. I did what I had to do, he said, voice trembling. Your brother was in danger. People were after him. People are always after him, I replied. That's not an excuse to steal from me. It wasn't stealing, he barked. You always judge him because you're a Marine. But he's my son too. He needed help, and you didn't. When did I stop mattering, I asked, voice low but steady. I served 13 years, sent money home, kept this family afloat more than you'll admit. When did I become expendable? He hesitated. In that silence, I saw the truth. He hadn't meant to hurt me, not out of malice but weakness, love twisted into obligation, fear of losing his son. He never stopped trying to save, but intent doesn't undo damage, and love never justifies betrayal. Behind him, the screen door creaked. Chad stepped out, rubbing his eyes as if waking from a nap instead of confronting the consequences of his actions. Is this still about the house? He mumbled. Yes, I said. It's still about the house. Chad sighed. Jesus, sis, relax. It's not like you're dead. You can rebuild. It's not the end of the world. No, I said. It's not the end of mine, but it might be the end of yours. His face twisted. Is that a threat? No, I said. It's a prediction. A car slowed, then stopped in front of the house. The window rolled down. Everything all right? I heard yelling. It was Mr. Halper, a retired Navy neighbor who'd lived 2 doors down since I bought the place. Recognized me immediately. He stepped out of the car. Staff Sergeant Lawson. Didn't know you were home. Just got back, I replied. He glanced at my father, Chad, then Emily, brow furrowed. Something going on here? My father stiffened. Private family matter. Actually, I said, it's not. Mr. Halpern waited patiently, like the experienced sailor he was. I explained simply, the sale, the fraud, the misuse of power of attorney. No embellishment, no accusations, just facts. When I finished, he whistled softly. That's not good. No, I agreed. Have you called the sheriff yet? He asked. My father spun toward him. No one needs to call anyone. We'll settle this ourselves. Emily shook her head. No, she said quietly. We won't, I added. I'll be contacting my attorney today in the VA legal office. They need to be involved. My father's face collapsed. Maria, please don't do this. We're family. I looked at him long and steady. I know, I said softly. That's why this hurts. He swallowed hard. I made a mistake, he said. You made several, I replied. Now we deal with them. A brief silence followed. A bird chirped. A car drove by. Life went on outside while ours felt fractured. I turned to Emily. You should go inside. You've got a long day ahead. She nodded and slipped back into the house. Mr. Halpern returned to his car, and I stepped off the porch toward the street. Where are you going now? My father called, voice cracking. To do what you should have done, I said without turning around. Tell the truth. I spent the rest of the morning in the sheriff's building, a place I'd visited once before, to register my address after deployment. Back then, it was routine. A few signatures, a polite greeting, an older deputy thanking me for my service. This time was different. I wasn't Staff Sergeant Lawson checking in. I was a woman armed with a folder full of evidence showing her family had violated federal regulations while she was overseas. The front desk deputy recognized me immediately. silver-haired, glasses low on his nose. Well, I'll be. Back in town already, Lawson? Came home to a problem, I said. He studied the folder, nodded slowly. Let me get Lieutenant Donahue. Within minutes, I was sitting across from Donahue, late 40s, tired authority etched in his face. I laid the folder on his desk. He opened it, scanned the first pages, then sighed. Your father signed these? Yes, and the buyer connection? Benson, I said. You know him, unfortunately. He flipped through, tightening with every page. VA-backed property, unauthorized POA use, rushed sale, no attorney oversight, no court approval. This isn't small, he said, leaning back. This is a mess. I know, I replied. The sale can't be finalized legally, he continued. And your father and brother, they may have committed more than one offense here. I'm aware, I said. He closed the folder carefully. I'll need to send this to the county prosecutor. Statements from everyone, yourself, the buyer, your father, your brother, the middleman, Benson. He's been on our radar before. Of course he has, I muttered. Lawson, he said carefully, are you sure you want to move forward? Once we start, there's no taking it back. Public record. Messy. It could destroy your father's reputation and more. I took a slow breath. Lieutenant, he destroyed my trust. He used my deployment to take something I spent years building. If I let that go because it's uncomfortable, every service member with family issues is vulnerable. He nodded. All right, we'll start today. For the next hour, I sat with a young female deputy who transcribed my full account while Donahue made calls. I explained everything. The power of attorney emails from Okinawa, unreturned calls, Chad's texts, the balcony night, the ownership change, the rush sale, the porch confrontation, Emily's involvement. She typed rapidly, clarifying only dates and names. When I finished, she looked up, quiet. I'm sorry. I nodded. Thank you. Stepping out of the sheriff's building, the afternoon sun warmed the pavement. Exhaustion mixed with clarity. This wasn't revenge anymore. Not childish revenge. This was accountability, and accountability takes work. Later, Emily called. Her voice shook as she confirmed with her attorney that the sale was invalid. She had grounds to reverse the transfer and pursue damages against both Benson and my father. I didn't want any of this, she said. I just wanted a house. I know, I said gently. You'll get one, but first, we fix this. She asked if I'd speak to her attorney directly. I agreed. An hour later, I was on a conference call, walking through every detail, letting the lawyer ask questions, confirm timelines. With every word, I felt lighter, like the weight was lifting off my chest. But the real confrontation was still ahead. Around 8 p.m., sky fading to deep blue, my phone rang. Not Emily, not the sheriff's office. Dad. For a moment, I considered letting it ring, but something inside me, maybe the part that remembered the father he used to be, made me answer. His voice was small, tight, brittle. Maria, the sheriff's office came by. I know, I said. You said I filed a report. I did. You didn't have to do that. I closed my eyes. I gave you every chance to be honest. You weren't. I made a mistake, he said again, as if repetition could fix it. You made a series of choices I corrected, and each one hurt someone. It wasn't supposed to hurt me, he whispered. Dad, it was always going to hurt me. You sold my home. A long pause. Heavy inhalation. Can we talk in person, he asked. Yes, I said, but not alone. He sounded wounded, but didn't argue. Okay, tomorrow morning? Your house. My house? I repeated, letting the words settle. I'll be there. When I hung up, the motel room felt heavier. Not fear, that part had passed, but the weight of endings and beginnings tangled so tightly, I couldn't tell which was which. I didn't sleep much, but I was ready. The next morning, I drove back to the house. Emily was there with her attorney. The sheriff's deputy arrived shortly after. Then my father and Chad pulled up in Dad's truck, both looking smaller than I had ever seen them. Dad avoided my gaze. Chad looked like he wanted to disappear. We formed a loose circle in the yard. No shouting, no dramatics, just the quiet tension of truth finally cornered. Dad cleared his throat. I didn't realize it was illegal, he said. I swear to God I didn't. You didn't want to realize, I said softly. There's a difference. Chad mumbled, but his lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, silencing him. The sheriff's deputy explained the next steps. Statements, temporary restrictions on Dad and Chad regarding the property, the investigation, the possibility of charges. Dad went pale. He looked at me, eyes watery. I never meant for it to come to this. I know, I said, but you brought us here. I turned away. There was nothing left to say. For the first time in days, I approached the front door, hand resting on it. The paint was cool beneath my fingers, familiar, and it made my throat tighten. I didn't open it, not yet, but standing there I felt something returning, a sense of home. Not because the house was safe, but because the truth was. When everyone left, the deputy, the attorneys, the neighbors pretending not to watch, I stayed in the yard. The air was cool, heavy with the stillness that follows a storm. Dad and Chad had driven off silently. Emily and her attorney had gone to file paperwork. I remained on the patch of grass I once mowed every Sunday, letting the quiet settle around me. I finally opened the door slowly, cautiously. Walking inside felt like entering a memory that wasn't mine anymore. The living room had changed. Emily had rearranged furniture, added blankets, hung pictures of her family. But beneath the new touches, I could still see shadows of my own life. The dent where I dropped a toolbox, the scratch on the doorframe from moving a dresser, the faint outline on the wall where my medals once hung. Homes change, but they remember. I walked through each room, not to reclaim anything, but to remind myself I hadn't lost everything. The decision now rested with the law, attorneys, the county, and the VA. For the first time since this nightmare began, I trusted that process more than anything my father could say or do. The last room I visited was my bedroom. White curtains fluttered in a soft breeze. The bed and color scheme were different. The scent was different, but the room's bones were the same. Running my hand along the windowsill, I felt the ridge where I'd carved my initials when I first bought the house. The small bumps hit me like a soft punch to the heart. I lingered before leaving. I didn't want to intrude, but I needed to feel the house one more time. As I stepped out, my father waited at the bottom of the porch, hands in pockets, shoulders hunched, carrying a weight he finally recognized as his own. We stood in silence, the longest we'd shared in years. Finally, he said, "Can we talk?" I stepped down carefully. "We've been talking," I said. "No," he replied quietly, "not like this." Something in his voice, humility, exhaustion, the end of excuses, made me pause. I nodded once. He looked older than I remembered, not from time, but from regret. His eyes were red, his mouth trembling. "I thought I was helping him," he said. "I thought if I didn't step in, he'd lose everything." "You didn't step in," I said. "You stepped over me." "I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to understand. I was scared." "Of what?" "Losing him," he whispered. "He's a mess, Maria. Always has been, but he's all I have left. And I didn't want to lose you either, but I kept choosing wrong." I didn't soften, not yet, but I listened. "Your mother was the strong one," he continued. "You got that from her. After she died, I didn't know how to hold things together. Chad needed me more, or at least I thought he did. You were always fine, always the one who made it. I thought you wouldn't break." "I didn't," I said, "but you broke something in me." His eyes filled. "I know, and you broke something in yourself too," I added. "You just don't see it yet." He covered his face with one hand, hiding from the truth. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "You can't fix all of it," I said gently, "but you can start by being honest and letting the consequences happen." He let his hand fall. "I don't want to go to jail." "You may not," I said, "but you may have to answer for what you did." He nodded slowly. "If that's what it takes to make this right, I'll do it." For the first time since I returned, I believed him. He began to turn away, then stopped. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "I know I never say it right, or at all, but I am." I didn't respond immediately. The words were late, but they were a start. "Take care of yourself," I said, "and take responsibility." He nodded, got in his truck, and drove off slowly, wheels heavy. I stayed in the yard, letting the air lift some of the weight from my shoulders. Emily came outside, hands in coat pockets, expression kinder than I deserved. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I think so," I said. "Are you?" "We will be," she replied. "It'll take time, but we'll figure it out." I was glad I told her. "No matter what happens, I want you to land on your feet," she smiled faintly. "You too." The following weeks unfolded slowly. Attorneys met, papers were filed. Benson disappeared for 2 days until the sheriff found him hiding. Chad attended mandatory meetings with a public defender. My father gave a 3-hour statement, leaving pale and shaken, but he didn't back out. He faced his actions and the house. After enough legal work to fill a drawer, the sale was officially voided. Emily and her husband were reimbursed through the county's emergency fraud fund while pursuing damages from Benson. My house remained mine, though it would take months before I could move back. Healing takes time. The day I stepped inside as the official owner, I moved through each room slowly, memories flooding back. This time, though, there was something else: peace. Not perfect, not complete, but a quiet acceptance. A gentleness I hadn't felt in years. I stood in the living room and whispered, "I'm home." The truth was bigger than that. I wasn't just home. I was whole again. Betrayal hadn't broken me, forgiveness hadn't erased me, but it softened the sharp edges. And if there's one lesson from my story, family can fail you. People can disappoint you. Those you love most can hurt you deepest. But you do not lose your worth because someone else lost their way. You still deserve your place in this world. Sometimes the hardest journeys bring the clearest lessons. If my story resonates or reminds you of someone in your life or of a moment you had to stand alone, feel free to share it. And if you want more like this, I'd be honored if you stayed for the next one.